good morning, and welcome to the Africa Weekly Talk. Today's subject on the docket is who is Black and African. And this subject is in relation to a video post by, I presume, a lady from Dominican Republic at the Ethiopian Cultural Festival at the University of Maryland, I think last year or so, where she was asking Ethiopians whether they identify themselves as Ethiopians or Blacks. Fellows, I would like you guys to hear the audio of this interview, and then I'll get back to you guys, and then we will talk about this issue. So let's roll the tape.
And you're from Ethiopia? Wonderful. Okay, so do you speak any of the Ethiopian languages?
I do not speak most of English.
Okay.
I can understand.
You were born and raised here?
Yes, I was born and raised here.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Do you think Ethiopians are Black?
To be honest, yes. I think they are Black because it all originated in Africa.
Okay.
All Black people basically originated in Africa.
Right. Okay, so because they're from Africa, you think Africa means Black?
Yes.
Africa means Black. Do a lot of Ethiopians consider themselves Black? From what you hear?
Some do. It just depends on where they grew up.
Right.
If they grew up in America, they definitely consider themselves Black.
Right.
If they grew up in the country, then they'll probably really consider themselves
Ethiopian.
Because they grew up.
Right.
Most of them try to come to America.
Right.
Better life.
That's a good point that you make. Because people say that all in America, you identify yourself by your skin color. But
All right, fellas. Now let me go ahead and roll another audio recording of a Somali woman also talking about why she identified as a Somali. There you go. Let's go.
A few things up. No Somali will ever identify themselves as white. Most Somalis will not identify themselves as Black, but they will, however, identify themselves as a Somali. And this is mainly because Somalis know that Blackness, race, is a social construct created by white Europeans. Same Europeans we repelled from our shores countless of times. So it makes no sense for us to just turn around and accept a social classification created by the same people our ancestors fought against.
All right, fellas. So you heard from both people talking about how they identify themselves in America. Now, if you heard the Ethiopian dude and you heard the lady during the interview, you could tell clearly that she was trying to force feed him so that he can give responses to fit her narrative. But the guy stood his ground and told her that, look, I identify as Black. Every African is Black. And out of that, I'm Black. But if you're talking about somebody in Ethiopia, they don't identify based on this social construct of Black, white, pink, yellow, and all that stuff created by our European colonizers. Because in most African countries, like the Somali lady said, we identify by nationality and then tribes and ethnicity. So if you ask an African in any African country, the first thing they will tell you is the country that they are from and then their nationality, their tribe or ethnicity. So if, let's say, you go to Ethiopia right now and you ask an Ethiopian, what are you? Their response is going to be, oh, I'm from the Oromo tribe or the Tigray area. Or if you ask a Nigerian, they will tell you, oh, I'm an Igbo or Yoruba or Hausa. Same way you go to Somalia, they're going to respond based on the tribe that they are from. So they are not going to respond by saying that, oh, I'm Black Somalia. No. And that is how it is. And that is how all of Africans will respond to a question like that. But from the interview, you can tell exactly what this woman was trying to get to. Basically, trying to create this divide and conquer nonsense. So if this dude had said, oh, I identify as Ethiopian, then that means, oh, he's trying to disown his Blackness and all that nonsense. That's where she was getting to. But he stood his ground and told her, look, if you're in Ethiopia, you identify based on nationality and tribes or ethnicity. But in America, as a Black person, that's what I am. So I'm a Black person in America. That's who I am. And that's how all Africans identify themselves. So it's not just Ethiopians or Somalians and all that stuff. But even let's look at it from the historical standpoint. We all know now that the cradle of humanity and civilization is Africa. All right? The cradle of humanity and civilization is Africa. That's where everything started. Dr. Leakey, a white European born in Kenya, when he did his anthropological and archaeological excavations in Kenya, he discovered human fossils that date back close to a million years. All right? And all the human fossils and human skulls that have been found in Africa have all been found within the southern part of Africa and eastern part of Africa, and all date back hundreds of thousands of years. As a matter of fact, the last one that was the quite recent one that was found was in the 1974. That was Lucy, the mitochondrial Eve. Lucy, who was about 3 feet 3 inches tall, was basically described as the full body skull or human skeleton that had ever been discovered. And out of that, it became the final blow to the white Eurocentric mentality that the human race came from Europe and all that nonsense. That look, Africa is the cradle of humanity. No questions asked about it. All right? No questions asked about it. Now, even if you look at Africans, we as Africans come from the same family tree. Outside of even talking about the out of Africa migration, how black people migrated to other parts of the world and eventually all races came out of Africa and all that stuff. I'm just going to focus on Africa for this particular topic. And if you look at Africa as it is, and you look at we as Africans, we come in different shades, different structures, with different facial skull and so on and so forth. And all has to do mainly with sometimes the climatic conditions of the African continent. Because if you look at Ethiopia, Kenya, and you look at the equator, the temperature in those areas are quite different compared to Southern Africa, and then as well as the northern part of Africa and then eastern part of Africa, western part of Africa. So definitely coming from the same family tree, and with the migration pattern of our ancestors, you're going to have different people settling in different parts of Africa. And with these climatic conditions, you're definitely going to have people taking different shapes in terms of their facial bone. So you can have people from maybe eastern part of Africa with long noses, with different facial skull, like people from Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda, Somalia, different from people from, let's say, South Africa and East Africa and then northern part of Africa. So that is part of normal human structure. And that's how it's going to be. And if you look at even one of the early human beings to walk on this planet that we know of today, the Khoisan people of South Africa. The Khoisan people naturally are fair-skinned people. And these are people that sometimes we call the Bushmen. These are fair-skinned people with natural hair, just like any other African you find in Africa, whether in Ethiopia, Kenya, Nigeria, Togo, Mali, or whatever. These are typical Africans with curly, kinky hair, whichever way you want to call it. But at the end of the day, these are fair-skinned people who haven't mixed with nobody. I know a lot of times when you see people from Africa who are fair and all that stuff, this idea of this same old European-centric mentality, inferiority, superiority mindset, that somehow if an African is light-skinned, somehow they have been mixed with somebody from Europe or something. All that is baloney, fellas. Look, the albinos are originally from where? Africa. Albinos are originally from Africa, and the reason why they come in that shape and that form is because of genetic issues. And out of that, they don't produce enough melanin. So you have albinos who have facial structures that are the same as every African with blonde hair. At the same time, some of them are even lighter than the European. I've seen a lot of albinos that are lighter than Europeans. But if you look at them, their bone facial structures, their skull, they are just typical African, like any African that you ever find. But they are albinos and even lighter than Europeans. And these albinos are from the same dark-skinned African parents. Same dark-skinned African parents. So if you look at the African and you look at black people in general, we are the cradle of humanity. And out of being the cradle of humanity, we come in different shades and different forms. We have light skin, we have brown skin, we have dark skin. It doesn't matter what color or skin or color you see of an African. At the end of the day, there's one thing that is very peculiar of an African, which is the hair. If you look at the texture, whether you are light, dark, or brown, we all have the same hair texture. Woolly, curly, or kinky. That is the African hairstyle. And even looking at your own family structures, fellows. If you look at your own family structures, 2 brothers or 3 brothers and sisters, same parents, all right, same parents. One can be light, one can be brown, and one can be dark. And we're talking about same parents. We're not talking about different parents, same parent. But you can see the different shades within the same family structure. So basically that tells you that that is how we are. And we come in these different shades. So that doesn't make these people from East Africa, maybe with long noses, or people from South Africa, or people from West Africa with broad noses or thick lips or whatever, different from the other people from the other parts of Africa. At the end of the day, we are all the same people from the same family tree of Lucy. We are the same people from the same family tree, but due to migrations and also climatic conditions, that changes as time goes by, and then it has to take different shapes. I mean, look, I live in the United States of America, where we have winter and summer. And if you live in Europe, you know it too. Summertime, look at the skin, your skin. I mean, the pigmentation of your skin changes wintertime and changes of summertime. A lighter skin person in wintertime gets more lighter. And in summertime, because of the humidity and the sun, guess what? Darker. So at the end of the day, that is how it is. So if you look at Africans, if you look at the different climatic conditions, like South Africa, where the temperature tends to be more favorable in terms of like winter-like conditions, and part of East Africa, which is totally different from that of West Africa, which is always very, very scorching sun. At the end of the day, you're going to have these different pigmentation, skin pigmentation, because of these weather conditions. And this also will contribute to what different facial bones and facial skull and stuff. So that is the natural thing to see in a continent that is the cradle of humanity. I mean, that is the cradle of humanity. I mean, it's so funny that we allow these Europeans to use this divide and conquer methods to divide us by saying that, oh, because these people have long noses in the eastern part of Africa, they must be different from those from the southern part or the western part of Africa. Fellows, let's not buy into this nonsense. I mean, look at it this way. You go to Europe, you go to Finland, look at the people from Finland, people from Sweden, and then who tend to have red hair, blonde hair, have a lot of freckles on their skin and all that stuff. And then you compare them to, let's say, Germans and the English and the French. Somehow they are all Europeans. They don't say that, oh, because they are Finnish or Swedes from the western part of Europe, somehow they are different because these people from the Germans and the French and all those people are also different. No, they are all white Europeans. But when it comes to the African, because of this racial nonsense that they always want to use this divide and conquer to separate us from one another, then they come up with this construct that, oh, somehow because these people have straight noses and the other people have broad noses, oh, they must have to be different. But meanwhile, every anthropological studies that have been done on the continent of Africa shows that we all come from one same family and one same DNA gene. Every African comes from the same DNA. Whether you are from the East, you are from the West, you are from the South, or the natives from the north. Now, when I talk about the natives from the north, what I want to say emphatically clear today is that Northern Africa, which comprises basically Libya, Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, and Egypt today, they are not native. Those European people you see in these Northern African countries are not natives of Africa. Let me say it clearly. The Libyans, the Tunisians, the Algerians, the Moroccans, and the Egyptians that you see today are not natives of Africa. These people are people who migrated into Africa thousands and thousands of years ago. Some were brought there by the Moors, the African Moors, the black Moors that ruled Spain for about 700 years and were finally driven out from Spain by the Romans, and then brought some of these whites as slaves to northern part of Africa. And there are also those who also migrated from Europe and then came to Africa. So these Europeans of North Africa are not natives of Africa. I'm sorry, they are not natives of Africa, and that's a fact, and they know it. So this notion that though they have been there longer and they are not. The natives of Africa are black Africans, just like the Bantus, the Khoisans, the Somalis, and all the other Africans that you see in Africa. Those are the natives. Because you go to mostly, let's say, Libya. What country does Libya border? Mali. Right? You cross Mali, you are in Libya. Then Niger. Then you look at Morocco. All those places, the natives are dark-skinned black Africans, just like the Malians and the people from Niger and other parts of Africa. Then you have the Berbers and then the Tuaregs, who are also original natives of these places, who tend to look like the Fulanis. You know, so if you look at all these people, these are the original natives of northern of Africa. But today, if you go to most North Africa, all the majority, super majority of these people are all Europeans looking people. And they will claim that, oh, the ancestors. No, they were not. Like they talk about Egypt. Egypt that you see today are Arabs. The last ones are Arabs. And you also had the Romans and the Greeks that came in and all that stuff. Original people of Egypt, which was called Kemet, are Africans too, black Africans that come from southern part of Egypt all the way to Sudan, which is Kush, then Ethiopia, all the way to the Nile, all the way to Uganda. But one thing that we also have to understand is this. At the end of the day, we are all Africans. We are all Africans because we come from the same family tree, like I said earlier. You look at our hair, you look at our facial bone, you look at our skin, melanin of our skin, whether you are dark skin, brown skin, or light skin, we have the same skin texture. You know, we have the same skin texture. And if you look at people from Somalia, a lot of these people today might think that they are somehow like Arab because of the Islam that was introduced to them. But if you cross the Red Sea and you go to what is called today Saudi Arabia, the so-called Middle East, all those places we call northeastern of Africa. Saudi Arabia, as you see today, is a black African place. That's what it was. The Persians and the Turks migrated and settled and mixed with those people there. That's why you still have a sizable number of Africans in Saudi Arabia who are natives. The same way some part of Persia and Iraq that you all know today that are all mainly Arab and Persians used to also have natives of Africans. All those areas used to be called Northeast Africa. You know what I'm saying? So if you look at a black person, I mean, especially for those who are in Somali today, yes, eventually there were some mixtures that came in, as well as Ethiopia, you have some mixtures that came in. But if you look at the foundation of Ethiopia, which was first called Ethiopia, mainly relating to Nubia. When the Greeks first called Ethiopia, they didn't even talk about Ethiopia as we see Ethiopia today. In Nubia, which is southern part of Egypt, which is Sudan today, was called Ethiopia because Ethiopia in Greek meant bent faces or bent skin. And so out of that, all those people in Africa were called Ethiopians. Before they were called Libyans. And all was a description of the structures and the color of the people, which was different from the European, the Greeks and the Romans and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, like the legendary Peter Tosh once said, it doesn't matter where you come from. As far as you are a black man, you are an African. And your African is born in you. That is what you are. So when I hear people do videos talking about whether you're an African, who is an African, and all that stuff, I get it. I understand it. We are Africans. We come in different shades. We come with different facial bones and structures and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, we come from the same family tree. And out of that same family tree, and because of climatic conditions and changes that takes place after thousands and thousands and thousands of years, our facial skull and skin also started taking shape in different forms. And that is what basically you see in our different shades that you see among us. But at the end of the day, we are all Africans. We are all from the same family tree. Our genes and DNA goes with one family. And that is what it is. So let's not feed into this narrative of people trying to use divide and conquer methods, where they're trying to say that, because you look lighter, or you have a straight nose, or you people are from this side of Africa, somehow you have to be different from the other people from the other part of Africa. I'm sorry, fellows. Even within our own African countries, you go to every African country today, even within the culturally, ethnically, and tribally, you will see that even people from certain parts of your country tend to look a little bit different from people from other parts of your country. And that is part of being African. So, fellows, let's accept what we are. We are proud African people. And that's what we are going to be. So let's not feed into this divide and conquer narrative. At the end of the day, they know. They said what? The curse of Ham. And the curse of Ham is where? Africa. So we are all Africans and we're all black people. And we're all proud black people. And let's accept that. So if it's Sunday, it's the Africa Weekly Talk. God bless you guys. Have a great week. And I'll meet you guys on next week Sunday. Thank you and peace and love.